Pawns are made to be sacrificed not only in the opening, but also in the end game. We go through 5 different ways to sacrifice your pawns and to secure that full point win. First position, it's 2 versus 1. 2 pawns for white versus 1 pawn for black. How's white going to win this? The simplest way is through the idea of abandonment. Hopefully that doesn't bring up anything for anyone. After we get the king pushed all the way back, the king is 2 moves away from capturing this pawn. And so what does white do? White just completely ignores his own pawn, sacrifices the one child, this pawn, for the sake of the other child, this pawn. And he moves all the way over. And when the black king does capture the pawn, we can see black's king is 1, 2, 3 squares away from being able to do anything to capture that pawn. White continues all the way forward and he blocks. He escorts his own pawn. He blocks off the black king from getting in here, and white's going to be able to easily win this game. And this concept of abandoning your own pawn shows up in all sorts of games. That was a rook pawn in the last game, all the way over here on the rook file. That's the best one. The further away it is to the side, the better. But in this position, we have a knight pawn along the knight file right here, and it works just as well. We can see that after a couple of moves, black was originally trying, okay, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to try to pick up these pawns, do something, but white just pushes his own pawn forward. Black cannot afford to go after those pawns. He has to keep an eye on this passed pawn, and white here says, okay, go ahead and do it. I'm going to be able to easily grab this pawn and be able to promote. And no, you don't need all of your pawns. That's why you sacrifice them. You only need 1 pawn to win the game. We can sacrifice a pawn to gain the opposition. White's got a 2 versus 1. White naturally starts by moving his own pawn forward. And a bad move by black would be to move right here to f7, because that gives white the opposition. And he's going to have to move his way back. White's going to be able to get in here to e6 and going to be able to easily win this game. And so instead of that, black's going to smartly move back all the way here to f8. Because now, when white moves over to f5, black's going to be able to meet it here with f7. White's going to have to step back. White here wants to have that opposition, so what does he do? He just chucks his pawn. Black grabs the pawn, but now white's able to maneuver, do this little dance, and right now, on the 6th rank, the 6th rank's important. When those pawns are locked on the 6th rank, you're going to be able to grab that pawn. And even though right now black has the opposition, he's in front of white's king and it's white's move. It doesn't matter. Once you're all the way up here, once you're all the way up on the 6th rank, white's going to step aside and you're going to be able to move up to the 7th rank with your pawn. There's going to be no checks. Black has to move over here and it's going to be an easy win for white. If that opposition stuff didn't make sense, I did another video on opposition. I'll put a link in the description for it. There's a bonus way to win this. We mentioned black was looking to meet this move with this move gaining the opposition, but white can get a little bit tricky. He's allowed to move back here, and then once black does decide to move forward, it'll be on this move or the next move. It's inevitable. Watch my video on triangulation. Once he steps forward, white's going to be able to jump right up here, gain that opposition, and go to win this game without sacrificing the pawn. Abandonment, opposition, triangulation. This is just good old-fashioned bullying in this example. And what does white do? White first jumps forward and forces black's king to do something. He doesn't want to get stuck over here in the corner. If he gets stuck in the corner, it's going to be a sad day for him. So he moves over this way. It's super, super easy to go astray. You might think, okay, well, if I move forward here, black's going to take. And now I'm going to be able to push forward. The pawn covers here. The king covers here. That's all great. You got to be patient because when you push forward right there, black doesn't. He could just move over here and you don't got anything to do. If you push forward, it's a draw and you throw away the game that easily. So you got to be patient. White here is going to move over to the side. And you might think, okay, well, black's got the opposition right here. So he's just going to be able to jump and continue to maintain that opposition. Not quite that easy because we waited that one extra move and the black king is one further step away. Now we could sacrifice to clear the way for our own pawn. If black decides to jump back here, well, it's not going to be enough. Now these 2 pawns cover that. That's going to be an easy win. So black can't move to e8. He has to stay backwards. Now our king's going to be a little bit of a bully. He's going to jump forward, and now black's only legal moves to move back here. That's what he does. Again, we jump forward. Black only has one legal move. And now I hope you see this next move. We're going to be sacrificing one pawn to clear the way for the other pawn after we've just bullied the black king into the corner. And that is, again, c6 captures. Now we've created the perfect escort. We've secured the queening square, and it's over in just a couple more moves. This final position ties together a lot of the ideas. You might think, cool, I'm just going to go run after this pawn up here on g7 and grab it, but it's just not quite enough because black jumps forward, and we can see we're going to be losing our f4 pawn. No matter what happens, this is going to end up in a draw. White needs to be a little bit more creative. And we introduced this idea a little bit earlier, and that's the idea of pawn fixing. And so what does that look like? That looks like pushing forward to f6. Obviously, black's going to take that pawn. Otherwise, white's going to make a queen here in a second. So after he grabs, white pushes all the way forward and fixes this pawn as far forward as possible. He's all the way up here on the 5th rank already. And this idea works because black is boxed out of the position. His king's all the way over on g1. If he tries to jump forward here to h2, white's going to box him out. He's going to have to waste another move to move up here, and we'll be able to grab that pawn and easily be able to win this game. The other defensive idea for black is to move over to f1, but again, the same thing happens. Black is 2 moves away from this king, and so no matter what happens right here, white's going to be able to grab this pawn. Black cannot get to his pawn in time to defend it. And one more bonus concept. This idea of fixing works in combination with making sure the black king is boxed out. In this position, it's only a little bit different than our previous position, but it does not work to lay this out right here because black is able to get all the way over and get to defend his pawn in time. And that could actually turn into a big disaster if white's not careful. White here actually needs to give up on trying to win this game because he's not going to be able to do so. If he tries to go after this pawn, then he's going to come in contact with the pawn. But when you have this situation with pawns attacking each other, you want to be the second person in contact with those pawns. So black here becomes second person in contact with these pawns, forcing white to move away because we have this here grabbing this square. The only way to defend this pawn and attack this pawn is through this square. So you want to be the second one to move into these diagonal squares respectively. So now white would have to step aside, and black is easily going to be able to move over here and escort his pawn to victory. If that was a little bit too quick on the information, see the description below for my other endgame videos on opposition, triangulation, queen versus pawn, and there's going to be a lot more coming out. Have a great day, guys. I'll see you around here soon. We saw a 2v1, a 3v2. It works for 4v3. I think you get the idea. If you have the outside pawn that is passed, you're going to have the advantage. And in this case, the position is tied. It's 3 pawns to 3 pawns. But white here with the outside passer, black's king is tied down. It has to keep an eye on that. And I think you know where this is going. White just runs over, grabs these pawns, and he's going to be able to win this easily. And we go over... How many do we go over? We go over opposition,